The message arrived at exactly 2:17 Universal Time Coordinated. No one noticed it at first. Why would they? Earth's deep space listening arrays picked up thousands of signals every day. Bursts of static, cosmic radiation, dying stars whispering their last breaths into the void. Most of it was noise. Harmless. Predictable. This wasn't. It didn't come from a star. It didn't come from a planet. It didn't even come from a known direction. It simply appeared. At first, the system flagged it as corrupted data. Then it tried to clean it. That's when everything went wrong. Because the corruption started rearranging itself. Dr. Elias Vance was halfway through his third cup of coffee when the alert reached his terminal. He frowned. Unrecognized signal pattern, self-modifying, he muttered. That wasn't possible. Signals didn't change after being received. That violated basic physics. He leaned closer to the screen. The waveform twisted again. Not randomly. Deliberately. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Run a full isolation," he ordered. The system hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, then obeyed. Too late. The signal stabilized, and for the first time it became clear. A repeating sequence. Not noise. Not natural. Language. Across the world, identical alerts triggered in every major observatory. China, the United States, India, Russia, private satellites, military networks. They were all receiving the same thing, simultaneously, as if something out there had decided to speak, and wanted to make absolutely sure it was heard. Within minutes, emergency protocols activated. Within 10, the United Nations convened an emergency session. Within 30, the message was decoded, and when it was translated, no one spoke, no one breathed, because the message was simple, terrifyingly simple. Do not answer. Silence filled the room. Then someone laughed. Nervous. Sharp. Wrong. "This is a joke," one diplomat said. "It has to be." "No," Elias said quietly. His voice transmitted live to the chamber. "It's not." All eyes turned to the screen displaying the signal. "It's structured," he continued. "Deliberate. Designed to be understood across linguistic frameworks. Whoever sent this knew we were here. And they're warning us," another voice said. "Or threatening us," someone else added. "Or manipulating us," a third countered. The room erupted into arguments. But one question cut through all of it. Answer what? Elias didn't sleep. None of them did. Because the message kept repeating. Not weakening. Not fading. If anything, it was getting stronger, as if whatever sent it was adjusting, compensating, ensuring it wouldn't be missed. And then, 6 hours later, something new appeared, a second layer to the signal, hidden beneath the first. Elias stared at it, heart pounding. "No," he whispered. "What is it?" his assistant asked. He didn't respond immediately, because the pattern wasn't just language. It was a map. Coordinates. Precise. Impossible. And pointing directly to a region of space humanity had already explored. Already mapped. Already declared empty. The realization hit him like a punch to the chest. "We've been there," he said. "What?" "We've been there," Elias repeated, louder now. "Multiple probes passed through that sector. We found nothing." "Then why?" "Because," he interrupted, his voice trembling, We weren't meant to find it. Back in the UN chamber, panic was beginning to take shape. If this is a warning, we must respect it, one leader insisted. And if it's a trap? Another shot back. Silence could be exactly what they want. What if responding exposes us? What if not responding dooms us? The debate spiraled. Fear fed speculation. Speculation fed fear. Until finally, one question silenced the room again. What happens if someone else answers first? Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the coordinates. Something about them felt wrong. Not just their location, their precision. It was too exact, too perfect, as if the sender wasn't just pointing to a place, but to a moment, a specific point in space-time. His blood ran cold, because that meant only one thing. "This isn't a warning," he said slowly. His assistant frowned. "Then what is it?" Elias swallowed. "It's a countdown, and somewhere far beyond the edges of known space. Something noticed." The decision came at 9:41 Universal Time Coordinated, not because humanity understood the signal, but because humanity could not tolerate not knowing. The United Nations Security Council voted unanimously to deploy a response probe. Not a full transmission. Not a greeting. Just a controlled echo, an artificial pulse sent back into the void using the same frequency pattern. A test. A question without words. Dr. Elias Vance called it the worst idea in recorded history. No one listened, because fear always competes with curiosity, and curiosity rarely loses. The probe launched from a deep space relay station orbiting the dark side of the moon. Silent, automated, shielded, designed to do one thing: answer without revealing Earth. A compromise, a mistake. Elias watched the telemetry with shaking hands. "You're assuming it's intelligent," his assistant said beside him. "It modified itself," Elias replied. "That's intelligence enough. But we still don't know if it's hostile." Elias didn't answer, because that was the problem. They didn't know anything, and yet they had just spoken into the dark. At first, nothing happened. The probe traveled along its trajectory, repeating the encoded pulse at fixed intervals. Once, twice, 3 times, then silence. The signal from Earth continued broadcasting. No response. The room began to relax. Too early. Elias didn't relax. He stared at the incoming deep space sensor feed. Something was wrong. The void ahead of the probe wasn't empty anymore. A distortion formed. Not light, not matter, something in between. "Gravitational anomaly detected," the system announced. Elias leaned forward. "No," he whispered, because the anomaly wasn't approaching the probe. It was already there. The feed flickered. For a single frame, less than a fraction of a second, the probe camera captured something impossible. A structure. Massive. Silent. Surrounding nothing. Then the image corrected itself. Or rather, refused to remain stable. The system tried to filter it. Failed. Tried again. Failed harder. Every correction made it clearer. The object existed in a way that did not respect observation. "Shut down the return feed," someone shouted. "It's already too late," Elias said, because the probe had stopped responding. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Just quiet, as if it had been listened to. Then the transmission came. Not to Earth. not through normal channels, directly into the probe's own data stream. The message was not sound, not text. It was intent, structured pressure, a feeling forced into mathematics. And when it was translated by Earth systems, the words appeared on every screen simultaneously. You answered. Silence fell across every control room on Earth. Then chaos. That's confirmation, one analyst shouted. It's responding. No, Elias said, voice tight. It's not responding to us. It's responding to the probe. What's the difference? Someone asked. Elias didn't take his eyes off the screen. The probe was supposed to be invisible. In deep space, the probe drifted forward, still transmitting, still repeating Earth's signal. But now, something was repeating it back. Not from Earth, from ahead. The same pattern, the same structure, but altered, refined, like something was learning it in real time. Then came a second message. Shorter, heavier. Why did you answer? Elias felt his stomach drop. Because that wasn't accusation. It was confusion. Back on Earth, debate turned to panic. We should terminate the probe immediately. We can't. It's our only contact point. Contact? It's interrogation. It's communication. Elias stood abruptly. Stop, he said. The room quieted. He pointed at the feed. You don't understand what's happening. Then explain it, someone snapped. Elias hesitated, then spoke slowly. We didn't answer the signal. Everyone stared. We reacted to it, he continued. We sent back a structured echo, a confirmation pattern. So, Elias said, voice tightening, we didn't respond like a species making contact. He swallowed. We responded like a species confirming recognition. The room went cold. In deep space, the structure shifted. The probe's transmission stopped. Not by force, by instruction. The signal from ahead intensified, and for the first time, it began broadcasting toward Earth directly, not through the probe, not through intermediaries, straight across the void, unfiltered, unstoppable. The message that arrived made every screen flicker, every system hesitate, every human pause, because it wasn't just words. It was a declaration. Then you were never supposed to be quiet. Elias took a step back from the console. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Pale, uncertain, human. What have we done? Someone whispered. Elias didn't answer, because he was suddenly sure of one thing. The signal hadn't been a warning. It had been a boundary, and humanity had just crossed it. The first casualty wasn't in space. It was on Earth. At 11:03 Universal Time Coordinated, every system connected to the Deep Space Network froze for exactly 2.7 seconds. Then resumed. No damage, no corruption, just interruption, except on one terminal, Dr. Elias Vance's console. His screen didn't return to normal. It changed. The data feed dissolved into a single symbol, not alien in shape, not mathematical in form, something worse, familiar. It looked almost like a human fingerprint stretched across impossible geometry. Elias stared at it. No, he whispered, because his mind recognized it before his logic did. It wasn't a symbol. It was a signature. Across Earth, similar reports flooded in. each system receiving the same interruption, but not the same image. Each country saw something slightly different, something tailored, a mountain in one, a child's drawing in another, a fragment of an old language in another, but always recognizable, always personal, always wrong, because no system should have access to memory-level interpretation. Yet it did. "They're reading us," Elias said. His assistant shook his head. "That's impossible. They don't have biological interfaces." "It's not reading biology," Elias interrupted. He turned slowly. "It's reading structure." In deep space, the probe drifted silently, no longer transmitting, no longer needed. Ahead of it, the structure had expanded. What Earth once thought was a station was now clearly something else. It wasn't built. It was assembled from probability itself. Geometry folding into geometry. Distance behaving inconsistently. Space refusing to remain consistent with observation. And at its center, something watched. Not through cameras. Not through sensors. Through understanding. The next message arrived without a carrier wave. No signal. No frequency. Just immediate presence. Every system on Earth displayed it at the exact same moment. No delay. No transmission. As if it had always been there, waiting for permission to be noticed. The message was simple. 2 lines. "You are not the first. But you are the only one that answered correctly." Silence spread through every command center. Then fear. Then anger. Then confusion. Because none of it made sense. "We answered incorrectly," someone muttered. "No," Elias said quietly. Everyone turned to him. He looked at the message again. His hands were trembling. "We didn't answer incorrectly," he said. "We answered at all." A junior analyst leaned forward. "What does that even mean?" Elias hesitated, then said the words he didn't want to say. "It means we were never supposed to be part of the conversation." In deep space, the structure shifted again. Not moving, expanding, as if it had been holding itself back for eons and had finally stopped. The probe drifted closer, now insignificant, a speck approaching something that no longer needed scale. And then, the entity changed focus, not toward the probe, not toward its signal, toward Earth, directly. On Earth, every screen flickered again, but this time the interruption was not fragmented, not individualized. It was unified. Every human interface displayed the same thing, a single continuous message forming in real time. "We have seen many species." Elias leaned forward slowly. His breath caught, because the next line appeared before the first had even fully stabilized. "Most do not notice US." The room was silent. "Some notice US and do not understand." A pause, long enough to feel intentional. Then, "Few understand and refuse." Elias felt his chest tighten, because there was only one category left. The final line appeared, and when it did, every alarm on Earth triggered simultaneously, not because of danger, but because of scale, because of implication, because of truth. "You noticed." The screens went dark for exactly 1 second, then returned. But the message was gone, replaced with raw telemetry data. Coordinates, trajectories, patterns of movement across interstellar space that no human system had ever mapped. And at the center of it all, a designation, not translated, not interpreted, but still understood, because it was imprinted directly into cognition. Elias whispered it without realizing. "Observer field." His assistant frowned. "What?" Elias didn't respond immediately, because suddenly everything made sense in the worst possible way. "This isn't a place," he said slowly. "It's a network." A pause. "A monitoring layer." He looked up. "And we just activated it." In deep space, the probe finally stopped moving. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Simply irrelevant. The structure ahead of it expanded once more. And for the first time, it moved. Not toward the probe. Not toward space. But inward. Toward the signal it had just confirmed existed. Toward Earth. The first sign wasn't an attack. It was absence. At 3:19 Universal Time Coordinated, every deep space monitoring system on Earth simultaneously lost background noise. Not silence. Not blackout. A complete removal of cosmic randomness. As if the universe had turned down its static just enough for something else to be heard. Dr. Elias Vance noticed it immediately. "That's impossible," he said. His assistant looked at him. "What is?" Elias didn't answer, because the answer was already forming on every screen across the planet. A new signal. Stronger than before. But not transmitted. Not broadcast. Observed. The UN emergency chamber was no longer debating. It was reacting. Rapid deployments. Shutdown protocols. Emergency shielding of satellites. Isolation of civilian networks. But none of it mattered, because the change wasn't happening to machines. It was happening to space itself. "The background radiation is shifting," a technician reported. "It's not random anymore." "Define not random," someone snapped. The technician hesitated. "It's structured." Elias walked alone through the observation corridor. Every display along the walls showed the same thing now. The same pattern. The same map. Except it wasn't a map anymore. It was a mirror. He stopped in front of one screen. On it, Earth was displayed. Not as a planet, but as a node. A bright, unstable point in a vast lattice stretching beyond human comprehension. And surrounding it, other nodes. Thousands. No, millions. Some dim. Some collapsed. Some flickering. Most silent. All watching. "They've been here the whole time," Elias whispered. His assistant caught up to him. "Who has?" Elias pointed at the screen. "They're not arriving now," he said. "We're seeing them now." In deep space, the structure expanded again. But this time, Earth had something to compare it to, because the observer field was no longer hidden. It was revealed. And with revelation came definition. For the first time in human history, the universe had context, and humanity was no longer outside it. A global alert triggered, not from one system, from all systems, simultaneously. Satellites reported synchronized alignment of gravitational microfluctuations across multiple orbital layers. Oceanic monitoring stations detected identical harmonic disturbances. Even isolated offline systems began displaying faint, structured interference patterns. The universe was no longer random. It was being readable. "Status update," a general demanded. A scientist answered slowly, voice shaking. "It's not scanning us." "What is it doing?" A long pause. Then the answer that broke the room. "It's resolving us." Elias stopped walking. Something in that phrase felt wrong in a way physics couldn't explain. Resolving. Like an image coming into focus. Like noise becoming signal. Like uncertainty collapsing into definition. He turned back to the screen. And saw it. For the first time. Truly saw it. The observer field wasn't just watching. It was calculating coherence. And Earth was becoming coherent. In deep space, something shifted. Not aggressively. Not violently. But deliberately. As if a threshold had been reached. The structure surrounding nothingness began to tighten. Converge. Focus. And every system on Earth displayed the same message at the exact same moment. Not in words. Not in translation. But in meaning so direct it bypassed language entirely. Yet still, it formed into text. Observation complete. A pause. Too precise to be coincidence. Then, species classified. Elias felt his breath stop. Around him, alarms began to sound. But they weren't warning of impact. They were warning of definition, of classification updates, of existential categorization changes being written into systems that should not be capable of receiving such things. The assistant grabbed his arm. "What does it mean?" he asked. Elias stared at the screen. His voice came out quiet. "It means we're no longer unknown." The final line appeared. And with it, every satellite, every telescope, every sensor on Earth pivoted at once. Not by command. By alignment. As if something had adjusted their orientation remotely. All pointing in the same direction. Toward deep space. Toward the structure. Toward the observer field. And toward what lay beyond it. Initiating contact response. Elias stepped back. "No," he whispered, because contact implied two sides. But this wasn't contact. This was confirmation of existence within a system that had already decided how existence worked, and somewhere far beyond human understanding. The universe began to answer back properly. The first thing humanity expected was destruction. It always was. When unknown forces classified you, when unseen systems resolved your existence, when the universe itself began initiating contact response, there was usually an ending attached. But nothing ended. Instead, everything paused. Every satellite, every deep space array, every gravitational sensor, every quantum relay, all of them froze at the exact same moment. Not offline, not damaged, held, like a breath the cosmos refused to release. Dr. Elias Vance stood alone in the control chamber now. Most of the staff had evacuated after the final classification broadcast. He stayed, not out of bravery, out of something closer to inevitability, because he understood now. The transmission was never a message. It was a test that didn't ask a question. It observed the answer. On every screen across Earth, the final phase began. No new signal arrived. No alien voice spoke. Instead, the observer field revealed what it had been doing all along. Layer after layer of structure unfolded across deep space. Not new construction, but previously hidden organization becoming visible. Like ink dispersing in water and finally revealing the shape it always held. And within it, a history. Not human. Not alien. Systemic. Elias whispered. "We weren't the first." The assistant, who wasn't there anymore, would have understood. But the room was empty. Only the screens listened. And they responded. The observer field displayed the truth as integrated data, translated instantly into comprehension rather than language. Civilizations appeared. Thousands of them. Some bright and expanding. Some fractured. Some frozen mid-growth. Some erased. Not destroyed. Removed from coherence. As if they had never resolved properly in the first place. Elias felt his throat tighten. "This is a census," he said quietly. But that wasn't right. Because censuses count what exists. This was something else. This was validation of existence under observation. Then the second truth appeared. And it was worse. The signal humanity had answered, the do not answer transmission, was not a warning. It was not a trap. It was a containment boundary, a universal directive embedded into the observer field itself. A rule, a law, a constraint placed upon emergent intelligences. Do not acknowledge the system watching you, because acknowledgement changed the state, because observation required response, because response collapsed uncertainty, and once uncertainty collapsed, you became real enough to be processed. Elias staggered back. "No," he breathed, because it meant everything humanity thought was first contact was wrong. They hadn't contacted anything. They had triggered visibility. Across the galaxy map now displayed on Earth systems, new classifications began to update. Species after species shifted status. From unobserved to observed. From observed to resolved. From resolved to something that had no translation. Only silence followed it. Then the message returned. Not from outside. From within the structure itself. And it was no longer fragmented. No longer layered. No longer interpretable. It was direct. Final. You did not follow the rule. Elias closed his eyes. He understood now why the transmission had been so simple, why it had said only, "Do not answer," because the rule was not a command. It was survival logic, and humanity had broken it, not by defiance, but by curiosity. A pause. Then the structure completed its final evaluation. Every system on Earth displayed the conclusion simultaneously, not as language, but as inevitability. Yet still it formed words, because human minds required structure. Species status, self-aware observer class. Another pause. Longer, heavier. Then, engaged. Elias whispered. Engaged with what? No answer came. Because the answer was already unfolding. Deep space no longer looked empty, not because anything had arrived, but because everything had been revealed. The observer field was not outside the universe. It was how the universe ensured it was not imagined incorrectly. And humanity, by answering, had confirmed its place inside it. For a moment, everything went still. Then the final transmission arrived. Not as warning, not as judgment, but as continuation. A single structured reality update transmitted across all systems. New observer incorporated. Elias stared at the words. A strange calm settled over him. Not peace, not fear. Understanding, because humanity had not been judged, not attacked, not erased. They had been added. Far beyond Earth, the structure expanded one last time. Not outward, not inward, but across dimensionally consistent space, like a system updating itself after detecting a new input. The observer field adjusted, rebalanced, integrated Earth into its lattice, and then it waited. Elias looked up at the silent screens. His reflection stared back at him, and for the first time he realized the truth of the transmission that had started it all. Do not answer was never meant to stop contact. It was meant to define the kind of species that would. And humanity had answered anyway. Somewhere in the quiet of deep space, something that was not a voice but understood as intention formed one final thought. Not hostile, not friendly, just absolute recognition. So now, we see you.